Hey guys, it's Vandy. Back with Vanguard deck profiles. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and sorry, this time we're covering DZ set 9 for Brandt, which is Daikaiser. So Daikaiser finally got released in DZ set 9, which pretty much brings back the Legion mechanic, which is pretty interesting because Daikaiser didn't come out during Legion, he came out during Break Red, so you thought of all the mechanics he'd bring back, he'd bring Break Red, but hey, Legion is back. Personally, this is my least favorite of all the mechanics of Vanguard in general, but I don't think D-Legion is too bad, so I'm willing to give it the pass on this one, so let's just see what we have. First today, we have our Engine Generator. It is our ride deck crest. You remember deck is in your ride deck. Auto ride deck. When you ride, puts a card to your crest zone. If you win second, get your energy charge 3. Continue to spend 10 energy. Auto begin your ride phase. Energy charge 3 and act 1 per turn. Energy about 7. Draw a card. On pretty solid, you get a free 3 energy every turn. If you win second, you get an extra 3 on top of that. And once you hit 7 or more energy, you can blast off 7 of it to draw. In this deck, you will almost never use that draw skill because Daikaiser's main skill, which is really freaking good, requires 3 energy. So you will never use that draw skill, but it's nice as an option to have there in case you do need it. Though to be fair though, the base in this deck does actually get you free energy, so there will be times where you do actually be able to use the draw skill because you can refund a Daikaiser skill with that base. But anyways, one of it's the ride deck crest. Then we have our starter in Dimensional Robo Kaiser. Great Zero boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto or more pressing draw card, standard starter, and up as free draw if you go second. You can make this any starter you want, but I prefer to make it Kaiser over Daiyusha because you'd rather have one of those two to best maximize the effects of Daiyusha and Daikaiser. But because this deck is more focused on Daikaiser, just to make Kaiser the starter here. Moving on to our triggers, we have our Over Trigger and Star Dragon Deed of Infinitude Eldo Breath. Great Zero boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Over Trigger, you remember trigger in your deck, or build it as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose a means, give +1 million for the turn, and you build it during your jet track, activate its addition effect, which you get to double the power and critical of all your former units until end of turn, increase the double in power critical when activated. That ability is really good, especially with Legion, because something that I learned when I was first building this deck is that the two Vanguard units are technically considered separate units and their powers are added together. So, for example, if you flip a front trigger, the power 10k goes to both units separately and then gets added together, so pretty much it's a total of plus 20k to the Vanguard, not just plus 10. Eldo Breath then means with the double power effect, so both their powers are going to get technically doubled and then combined together, and even if it doesn't, it's a base power of 23, so 46k with double crit. So yeah, all around pretty good, especially with the fact that the deck does have the ability to restand the Vanguard for no cost outside of sending a hand card to soul, which the thing gets you, and again double critting with it as well, making it a very powerful over trigger, especially when you remember that Daikaiser has the ability to guard break people regardless of how much of the cost you pay. So yeah, one of Eldo Breath is our over trigger. You could run Vulnerable for consistent multi-attacking, but Eldo Breath is better in my opinion. Then we have a total of 7 crits, so 3 Star Aggression Dragon, Great Zero boost, 50k shield, 5k base. You may this any crit you want just to make a Star Aggression Dragon because I have Star Aggression Dragon into all my Brandt decks. 4 Patrol Decker Cops for the theme, Great Zero boost, 50k shield, 4k base, critical trigger, auto rear guard, about to boost your show to soul, choosing you give it 2k for the turn. That ability would never come into fruition because you don't need soul in this deck, and even if you did, it's all of like D-Robos. But I mean, if you want to have that extra 2k, you can. Again, I run it mainly for aesthetic. Following 4 copies of Transforming Heavy Machinery, Heavy Constellation Stallion, Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k base. You can make this any front you want. I would recommend you make it in Pyro because like I said, with Decker Cop, you don't need soul outside of D-Robo, so you could make this the 20k shield front. The reason why I don't do that is because I don't like running archetypal cards outside of their archetype, especially if I would be running in another archetype deck, in this case Dimensional Robos, so therefore I'm running the normal vanilla front because also my favorite front as well. And finally, we have 4 copies of our Heal and Alterate Spear Dragon, Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k base. You may then who you want. I just to make it Alterate Spear Dragon because any deck I stuff Star Aggression Dragon, I tend to stuff Alterate Spear Dragon into. This deck kind of has like the more aggressive trigger lineup because you want to be able to bully down your opponent as fast as possible, especially because D-Legion does not proc off until your opponent's at grade 3, and you will always be able to get to grade 3 before your opponent hits grade 3, so you want to be able to be a little bit more aggressive while you're waiting to get your whole game plan out. Moving on to our, I guess, non-trigger cards. First up is 4 copies of Super Dimensional Fortress Die Base, so grade 0 set orders play, put it to your order zone. It is a base, literally no cost at all to this, no requirements just to set this, and then act order zone. If your Vanguard is a Dimensional Robo, rest this card at energy charge 1. So cool, free energy just by resting it as long as your Vanguard is Dimensional Robo of any grade, meaning you could proc this off while you're on Kaiser. Then choose up to 1 grade 2 card Dimensional Robo and card from your drop zone and send it to soul. But if this card is put into the order zone this turn, you may search your deck instead of putting from drop zone, and if you search your deck, you shuffle it. So the turn is placed, you can pull from either drop zone or deck. You're most likely going to pull from deck, but then after that, you will always pull from drop zone. But again, that's just a free rest, get a free soul card, and get an energy on top of it as well, all for just the Vanguard being a D-Robo, which is good. And then act order zone, if your Vanguard is a Dimensional Robo of any grade, energy boss 2, rest this card, choose up to 1 grade 2 Dimensional Robo from your soul, call to rear guard circle. Get you board presence, only costs 2 EB, so you can spam that a lot, and it does involve resting itself, so you can choose whether you want to use up resources to get board presence or end up getting you resources instead. Either way, very solid order, get you board presence or get you resources at literally any point in the game. It's a grade 0 order that you can play for free and has no restrictions to it whatsoever. So very solid card to have in the deck. Easy for, if you open up with one of these in your opening hand, you're pretty much set for the rest of the game. Moving on, we have our normal units, 2 copies of Dimensional Robo Mariner. So one way you could play this deck, I chose not to go this route because I hate doing this, but one way you could play this deck is play a bunch of 1-ofs of the D-Robos, because thanks to the base being able to search all of them, once you pull them out of deck and then place them onto rearguard circle and then call over them, you can always get them right back, so you never really have to worry about having multiple copies. So you could play a bunch of run-of D-Robos. Because I hate playing a bunch of 1-ofs, I'm starting off with just 2 copies of everything. So 2 copies of Dimensional Robo Mariner. Grade 1 boost Fat Shield, aka base, auto discard from your hand during turn, may shove it to soul. So cool, it gives you discard fodder, and that means that turn you play that base, you can then search your deck for the skill. Then auto and place on rearguard circle from your soul by your card abilities. If your vanguards are grade 3 or greater Daiyusha, until end of turn this uses 2000 power, and your opponent cannot intercept. That ability is really good because once it's placed on rearguard circle by the ability, even if your main vanguard quote unquote isn't Daiyusha, aka when you're delegioning, Daiyusha is still a vanguard, so it would still proc the plus 2k ability and it would still nullify your opponent's intercepts or screw them over, especially with Daikaiser's ability to guard break. So 2 of Mariner. Then we have 2 copies of Dimensional Robo Lander, grade 1 boost 5k shield, aka base. So this ability will never proc, but if you really wanted to, you could shove this in the ride deck, but auto when placed on vanguard circle, search after 1 base card ability player to hand and shuffle your deck. So if you want to put this in your ride deck as your ride deck grade 1, you can. Personally, I want to do that, but that's up to you. And then auto when placed on rearguard circle from your soul by your card's ability. If your vanguards are grade 3 or greater Daiyusha in the card name, all your vanguards, and then you get 5000 power. So again, it's all the vanguards, which includes Daiyusha and Daikaiser, so 18 plus 18, 36,000 bullying down your opponent's vanguard circle, and this thing's a 13k booster, which is pretty solid. Again, you can't afford to put this in the ride deck because it's the exact same skill as the ride deck grade 1, except change out the word Daiyusha for Daikaiser. However, I chose to make this thing in the main deck and the other one in the ride deck because, again, you want to aggro your opponent down early, and Daikaiser is the one in the ride deck ultimately, so I might as well try to benefit as much as I can from that in case I need to aggro early on. So 2 of Lander. Moving on, we have 2 copies of Dimensional Robo Operator Milka, grade 1 boost 5k shield, aka base, active rearguard. Once per turn, for vanguards are grade 3 or to D-Robo, soul boss 1 rest this unit. Choose a normal unit with D-Robo and its different card name from this unit from your drop zone, put it to bottom. Then if you chose a card, choose one of your units with D-Robo in the card name, gets 5000 power for the turn. Pretty much the only card in the deck that costs soul, of which you will almost never use, but basically bot deck, maybe even the thing you soul blast and then give someone 5k in case you need to get extra numbers or you're about to deck out. It is a good card to have, and she is a D-Robo, so she is proccable via the order. I just choose to only have her at 2 copies because she's really only a last resort card to keep you from decking out type of thing, so 2 of as you will. Moving on, we have 3 copies of Glory Maker, a very good grade 1 who pretty much makes it so no matter what attack your opponent chooses to block of Daikaiser that turn, it's going to be difficult because either they block the one she's boosting, your opponent's going to struggle with either no blitz orders or have to call 2 or more, or they're going to not boost, and then Daikaiser has the ability to shut down Sentinels. So grade 1 boost, 5k shield, aka base, continuous if your vanguard only has 1 clan and your G-Zone has no cards in it. This deck follows both those rules with D Police and no G-Zone cards respectively. This card gets all the following. Auto drop zone when your grade 3 greater vanguard is placed and you do not have a rearguard with the same name as this unit, you may call this card to back or rearguard circle. Any back or rearguard circle, mind you, so that's pretty solid that she can go anywhere. Not to mention the fact that it's just by the vanguard being placed by any means, regardless of what grade the opponent's vanguard's at. So superior ride Daikaiser while your opponent's at grade 2. There you go. You get your grade 1 back to the rearguard circle. And then auto rearguard when she boosts, regardless of who she's boosting, vanguard or rearguard. If your vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, until end of battle, you may get, your opponent cannot play blitz orders, or when your opponent will call cards from the guard circle to 2 more at the same time, and if you do at the end of the battle, retire this unit. So you can basically make it so your opponent can't either play defensive blitz orders, or they can't, or if they guard, they have to drop 2 or more cards at the same time. And again, that ability just procs regardless of who she's boosting. So if you call all 3 of these to the back row, for the rest of that turn, your opponent is going to have to either guard with 2 or more cards or play blitz orders, depending on which effect you choose to use for those respective battles. All around, very solid grade 1 to have, super aggressive against your opponent, allows you to call her back continuously every single time the vanguard is placed, which you can proc off with Legion, makes for a really great grade 1, and she's recyclable, so 3 of. Next up, we have 4 copies of PG and Strong Arm Conservation Stroke Arms, grade 1 boost, 0 silt, 6k base, continuous touch on 4 Sentinels and deck, and its opponent guard circle, choose it reads, it cannot be hit in the battle, if it has 2 more cards in it, just a card from hand and discard it, standard PG, nothing special basically means if there's no more cards in hand placed on guard circle, you don't have to score great, because that means super aggressive in the early game. basically you spam the ever-living hell out of these. I mean, really only your grade 2s, but I digress. And then when your opponent does eventually counterattack you, throw on stroke arms, get a middle finger, you're good to go. Very solid PG to have, allows you to be super aggressive, which to be fair, most of this deck's rear guards come from soul, but allows you to be a little bit more aggressive with it from hand, and then when your opponent does eventually counterattack you, stroke arms, middle finger, good to go. You can make this any PG you want. You could make it Violate Dragon or Planet Wall Dragon because they have that same skill as stroke arms. I chose to make a stroke arms though because it came out close to the time of Daikaiser's release. As for our last grade 1 in the deck, one of in the ride deck and on the main deck of Dimensional Robo Kaiser Grider, because again, you can just soul blast it out or get it to board via the order, call over it, and then put it back into soul via the order. Great on boost, Fat Shadowkaiser base. Literally the exact same skill as Dailander over here, except change the word Daiyusha to Daikaiser. So on place Vanguard, so get a base, and then on place from rear guard onto soul by a card ability, it gets 5,000 power, and so does your Vanguard, as long as your Vanguard's a Daikaiser. It gives numbers to the Vanguard circle, gives numbers to itself, and allows you to bully down your opponent a little bit, regardless of a grade the opponent's Vanguard's at, and gets you a base for play. Again, you can make this either Kaiser Grader or Dailander as your grade 1 of the ride deck, because they have the exact same skill. I chose to make it Kaiser Grader though, because since the deck's main grade 3 is Daikaiser, in case you have to be a little bit more aggressive on your earlier turns, you can pull out from soul immediately instead of having to waste a base on it. So one of in the ride deck. Moving on to our grade 2s, 4 copies of Supernatural Robo Dailady, grade 2 and set 5k shield, 10k base, auto place on rear guard circle. If your Vanguard's a Dimensional Robo of any grade, counter boss 1, search for 1 base card, village, put your hand, shuffle your deck. So cool. CV1, grab a base, and then immediately play that base, and then immediately grab another unit. And because she's a D Robo, you can therefore send her to soul, or play a base that you probably pulled off of Kaiser Grader over here, then use that base skill, send her from deck into soul, then use another base skill to pull her out from soul, and then because she can be placed from anywhere, grab another base, and then repeat the process. Then auto rear guard when she attacks a grade 3 guard unit. If your order's on its true or base in it, she gets 10,000 power for that battle. Cool. 20k swing as long as she's attacking a grade 3 guard. It doesn't matter if it's a Vanguard or rear guard. It doesn't matter what grade your Vanguard's at. So if your opponent cheated out a grade 3 to rear guard, there's your grade 3 murderer. Not a bad grade 2 at all. Gets numbers, gets base searches, easy 4 of. Next up, we have 4 copies of Dimensional Robo Directing. Grade 2 and set 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when placed on rear guard circle. If your Vanguard's a D Robo, check the top 5. Choose up to 1 grade 3 or greater card with Robo in its card name, or up to 1 set order, reveal it, put it to hand, shuffle your deck. If you revealed a card, choose a card from hand and put it to soul or discard it. So you either get a free soul, or you just send a card to drop something that odds are you're going to send to soul anyways, because you'll have the base. So unless that card is specifically either a trigger or PG, it is going to soul one way or another. But this is your way to technically get more triggers into drop zone to, cycle back for Daikaiser's Legion skill. But at that same time, it allows you to either pull out one of your 3 important grade 3 cards, or it allows you to pull out your base, which can then search for more cards. So either way, very solid grade 2 that procs off regardless of what grade either player is at. Then continues rear guard or guard circle. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard D Robo on the card name and your orders on also has a base in it, this card gets 5,000 power and 5k shield on both players' turns. So it's a 15k base, 10k shield, which is pretty solid once you hit grade 3 and have a base card. So because Daikaiser can be superior ridden while your opponent's at grade 2, that means once they hit grade 3, you already have a pretty good interceptor on your board. Not a bad grade 2 at all. Get you cards, get you good defensive value, and is a 15k base, which makes for a good attacker. All around is a very solid 4 of. Next up, we have our last grade 2 in the deck, one of in the right deck, none in the main deck of Dimensional Robo Kaiser. Grade 2 and set 5k shield, 10k base, act Vanguard once per turn. If your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 2 or greater, ditch a card from your hand to choose up to 1 Super Dimensional Robo Daikaiser from the ride deck. Ride it as stand. If you rode, you cannot ride cards other than D Robos until the end of the fight. So pretty much, even if your opponent went first, you're going to get to grade 3 before they do, unless your opponent chose not to ride to grade 2 for whatever reason that may be. But this is your way to basically guarantee yourself to ride into Daikaiser before your opponent hits grade 2 and allows you, or before your opponent hits grade 3, and allows you to aggro them down a little bit more. The only downside is you can only ride D Robo, so you can't try to Tekken, Impul, Dio, and then Divine Skill while your opponent's at grade 2 because, or on your second grade 3 turn because XYZ. Then auto and Rotopon by a grade 3 card, Daikaiser in the card name, call his card to rear guard circle, so cool, gets you a free rear guard, and then continues rear guard if your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard, Daikaiser gets boost. So pretty much the second you hit grade 2, you immediately use its skill, go into Daikaiser, and then you immediately get a booster and an extra rear guard out of it. So not a bad grade 2 to have, but again, because its skill really only makes it a 10k booster, we don't need it in the main deck, so we only need it as a 1 of in the right deck, because again, the base can also recycle it if it ends up in drop zone. As for our grade 3s, we have 3 copies of Super Dimensional Robo Shadowkaiser. Love the moon in the background. Grade 3 to 9%, 13k base, act drop zone. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 with Daikaiser in the card name and you have not ridden this turn, soul boss 1 and bind this card to search your deck for 1 grade 3 grade card Daikaiser in the card name, write it down and shuffle your deck. Pretty much how D Legion is D Legion is only once per game per card. So even though you may have like 3 copies of Daikaiser, you can use the D Legion of all of them, but you can only use it once each. So this is pretty much your way to continuously spam the D Legion if you end up needing the ability to recycle triggers back. And then continuous rear guard. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 greater Daikaiser, it gets 5,000 power. And if your order zone has 3 more base in it, gets plus 10k instead of 5k. So pretty much it's a guaranteed 18k base base, because you're always going to be on a grade 3 Daikaiser, but more likely than not going to hit 23k base, which is pretty good, and it's going to get extra 5k from Daiyusha over here, so 28k base swinging into your opponent's vanguards. And again, it allows you to get that superior ride. And finally, auto rear guard, or in your hand, at the beginning of your guard step of the battle, your vanguard D-Robo when his card name is attacked, put this card to your drop zone and choose whenever he's being attacked as 10,000 power to end the battle. Must be done before performing guardians or intercepting. Either way, that's a pretty good ability, because while yes, you do have to play it before you start guarding, it makes the vanguard automatically have plus 10k extra, which is good. Or it's just as long as the vanguard is being attacked. So if your opponent is doing something like Vermilion and they're attacking your entire front row, and Shadowkaiser happens to be in the front row, first up, murk off Shadowkaiser so they have one less hit target. Then give the power, if you don't mind them hitting the vanguard, give it to the rear guard to make it harder for them to guard that, because it gives it to anyone being attacked. The vanguard just has to be currently in the battle as well. So all around pretty good that it can power up anyone, not to mention the fact that it does it for free, and it can proc from both hand and rear guard circle, and it's a 23k base during both players' turns once you have 3 or more orders and your vanguard to Daikaiser, but minimum is 18k, and allows you to pretty much spam out D-Legion consecutively. So it's a very solid 3 for me. And again, it's unfortunately unable to be called from Soul or put into Soul via the die base effect, so you can't cycle it back too much, but the deck has enough deck thinning prowess where you're probably going to hard draw it easily anyway, so 3 of. As for our next grade 3 copies of Supernatural Robo Daiyusha, because we obviously have to run Daiyusha in a deck that requires him as a D-Legion. Grade 3 jumpers are 13k base. Auto Vanguard once per turn when he attacks into anything. By card blasting one, you can draw a card. Then if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, choose any number of units with Directional Robo in the different card names, and they get 5,000 power for the turn. So give it to himself, give it to Daikaiser because that counts, so again, double 18k. Give it to maybe Shadowkaiser who's on your board, make him either a 23k or a 28k, Die Lady / Die Wrecking, and one of your 2 gunship thingies. Then Auto Vanguard once per turn at the end of the battle, this unit attacked into anything, put a hand card to Soul, stand it, and it gets -2 drives for that turn. If your bind Soul does not have a Dimensional Robo Daiyusha in it, and you persona this turn, bind a Daiyusha from Soul, and it gets +1 drive for the turn. So unfortunately, that ability will never go off, because A, there are no Daiyushas in this deck, and if you really wanted to, because like I said earlier, the deck does a lot of deck thinning, you can subtract any 1 copy of any D-Robo you see, and then casually just put in 1 copy of Daiyusha, who you can then search out via the base, and then, you know, you'll have your thing there. However, when you D-Legion, you lose the ability to Persona Ride. So that ability will never matter anyways, even if you do run Daiyusha. So we don't need to run Daiyusha here, but if you wanted to, then there you go. But either way, though, being able to get you a guaranteed restand, because D-Legion puts both units on the Vanguard circle, so both their Vanguard abilities with proc, means so you have a double Vanguard attack with always at least 26k swinging into the Vanguard circle. It gets you a Soul every single time you stand it, which you pretty much pull from your drive check, and every single time you attack, it replaces the hand card you're going to send to Soul at the end of the battle, and it gives a bunch of your board plus 5k. Very solid grade 2 to have, allows you to be really aggressive to your opponent, and allows you to basically multi-attack. If you want to make this ride deck grade 3, you very much could, to always guarantee get a restand while your opponent's at grade 2, and then immediately go into Daikaiser the next turn, but there's no way to guarantee to get a superior Daikaiser ride, so I like to have Daiyusha in the main deck as a 3 of. As for our last card of the deck, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck of Supernatural Robo Daikaiser. You don't need max copy of Daikaiser in the main deck, you could really afford to run 1 or even 2 of them, but I chose to make it max copy so I can spam D-Lead as much as possible in case I need to get a situation where I gotta spam back triggers. Anyways, grade 3 turn drive, no Persona, right? 13k base. Act Vanguard D-Legion. So Super Dimensional Robo Daiyusha. If your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, this unit may be returned for a total of 4 cards, 2 of them being trigger units that are neither heal or the over trigger, along with non-trigger cards. So a total of 4 cards go back. So 2 normal units, 2 triggers that aren't the heal or over. Search your deck for up to 1 specified card, D-Legion, and while it's in D-Legion, this Persona Ride icon is lost for both units. This ability can only be used once per card, but again, if you ride another Daikaiser, you could use the Legion skill again. For the record, if you do ride on top of a D-Legion, the other Legion grade 3 would go to Soul, but being able to basically get an extra Vanguard is great because that means it has total 3 abilities, Daikaiser's second ability, and the 2 abilities that it gained from Daiyusha. As for Daikaiser's own secondary ability, Auto Vanguard, once per turn, when this unit attacks into anything, regardless of its grade, regardless if it's a Vanguard or rear guard, if there is no booster for this battle, Energy Blast 3, and until the end of the battle, this unit gets Auto Vanguard at the beginning of the dry step. Choose one of your opponent's Guardians other than the over and retire it. So essentially, before you even do drive checks, the second your opponent throws down guards, for only Energy Blasting 3, your opponent is effed out of a guard of your choice. The best part is, too, is that this ability procs off the second the battle starts. So technically speaking, yes, your opponent can find a way to play around it because if you pay the cost and they know what they can guard with, or like know how they're restricted, but they still don't know which guardian you're going to kill. So it still forces them to guard out a little bit extra. But then if your binding doesn't have a copy of Kaiser in it, by binding a copy of Kaiser from the soul, this unit also gets auto vanguard. When your opponent's units retire from the guard circle by this unit's ability, all that unit's effects with cannot be hit are nullified. Basically, it nullifies PGs. And this ability procs regardless of what grade either player is at, and it procs regardless if it's in D Legion. So if you're confident you're going to pull your over on your first grade 3 turn while your opponent's at grade 2, and you know your opponent has a PG, and you can just energy blast 3 if you're that confident, bind the Daikaiser, and then when your opponent does throw down that PG, well, over trigger if you really were confident and your opponent gets screwed over. So Daikaiser, very solid grade 3. F-Soft Guardians screws over PGs once per game, essentially, and does it regardless of what grade either player is at, and does it all for only 3 energy. Very solid card to have, bullies down guard power, allows you to cycle back triggers, and it's only once per game, but you're able to rewrite it and then constantly spam back out. So very solid, 3 in the main deck and 1 in the red deck for me. And without further ado, that's it for this one. I hope all of you guys enjoyed. Also, this deck is a little bit more entertaining than I thought it would be. I'm not a big fan of D-Robos, and I'm definitely not a fan of Legion, because I used to hate Legion a lot, to the point where my first game that I played with Legion, I specifically picked to play Blast with Joker, because I knew it was a Legion hate deck. But this deck, honestly, I don't know, it makes it fun. Having the ability to board presence spam your opponent and get a bunch of numbers out of it with the combination of Daiyusha and Daikaiser, and then Daikaiser's skill basically being an F-all to every single guardian in the world that isn't the overtrigger, is pretty fun. So without further ado, I'm just one here. Hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and join us for Twitch. I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your vanguards.